Hello there, I am Black Bright, broadcasting out of the UK. Really, I should be saying I'm Dark Shades. Black Bright is the channel where I discuss social issues, political issues, immigration, injustice, legislation, that kind of stuff. Dark Shades is a more gentler channel, and it's where I discuss relationship issues, personal development, and anything to do with getting you, back on track with regard to some challenges you may be facing in your personal life. Anyway, one of the topics I was asked to speak about was how to manage requests from superiors in a workplace. How do you manage to be assertive in the workplace? Can you say no to a boss? Can you say no to line managers, team members? I mean, what is your role when you're at work? Well, I think it all depends on whether or not what they're asking you is reasonable, whether or not you feel as though you're being targeted because you are black, whether or not you feel you need to say no. Because sometimes it's in our heads, isn't it? I know that some when I've been asked to make a cup of tea, I to be honest, whether it's at home, well, I shouldn't say whether it's at home, but especially at work, if I'm asked to make tea for a lot of people, it gets my back up. I feel like a skivvy for some reason, and I'll kind of stick my heels in and say, "Oh, I'm not making tea right now," or "Why can't you make tea yourself?" Or I'll put this little bit in, and then they'll say, "Oh, go on, make the tea. Stop being such a pain in the butt." And we kind of make it into a joke. But my first reaction is to resist, and I'm not quite sure why I resist. And I think it is that mentality that, oh, who do they think I am? Do they think I'm a skivvy? I come here to work as this, and then they're asking me to make tea. Why aren't they making the tea? Is it an administrator's role to make tea? But then you have to ask yourself, do other people in the office make tea for everyone, or is it just you? If you're not the only one who makes tea and coffee, and they have all these different demands. I have black coffee, I have white coffee, I have one sugar, I have two sugar, and you're just like, for Christ's sake, enough already. But some as somebody said, they hate feeling like Kizzie when they're going in with the tray. They're going into this big boardroom, and as a black person serving all these white people around the boardroom, it reminds them of slavery. In a sense, it's most bizarre. But the weird thing is that a white person could be doing exactly the same thing and they don't even give it a second thought. So it's our history sometimes that plays into our mindset and makes us feel differently about being hospitable, because that is what we're being. We're being hospitable when you're offering to make people tea and coffee. As long as they're not asking you to do all the time, and as long as you're not the only person doing it, it's about being hospitable. It's about not taking it personally. It's about getting away from that mindset that makes you feel as though you're inferior if you make a cup of tea. That is your mindset. That is not the task. So it's about kind of saying, I'll make this. All you've got to do is actually watch the pattern. Is it something they're always asking you to do? If they're always asking you to do it, you can say, "Excuse me, I've noticed that you always ask me to make the tea, but you're not asking anyone else. Is there any reason for that?" You're quite within your rights. You're not being rude. You're asking a question. And it's similarly when you're thinking about assertiveness. Sometimes, they ask you to do stuff one on top of the other. And I remember one of my managers was asked, they gave me one thing to do, and then I was asked to do something else. Then I was asked to do something else. And I really felt overwhelmed. And I said to my line manager, I said, I feel dumped on. Everybody's asking me to do this. Everybody's asking me to do that. She said, but we don't know what you're doing. Nobody knows exactly what you're doing. And I guess working from home, they won't. So she said, all you've got to do is to let me know. And then I can at least tell the others that you've got this to do, that to do, that to do. And I felt kind of silly because really that's what I should have said. Instead of saying, oh, I feel overwhelmed, everybody's giving me stuff to do. All I had to do was say to each individual, look, I've got X amount to do. And I'll do that. I'm just letting you know that I've got A, B, C to do, and I'll do that afterwards. Is there a deadline? Yes, if it's a reasonable deadline, then yeah, okay, I can meet it. But sometimes we get ourselves in such a tizzy in the workplace. And I don't know if that's a cultural thing. I don't know if we've been taught way back, whether it's from our parents, that we cannot speak to authorities about how we feel, about what we want and what our needs are. And your workplace is no different from any other part of your life. It's no different from your home life. In your home life, you make your needs met. In the workplace, you do the same. Not because they're employers, not because they're your boss, not because they're your line manager or your colleague. It means that you cannot, in that situation, state your needs. Or if you feel uncomfortable about something, talk about it. I've learned so much working with the group of people I work with because I'm fortunate that they allow me to be myself. I think I'm quite not obnoxious, but I can be quite grumpy and miserable, as they call it, when they're asking me to do something. I always have to ask them, why are you giving me this? Why do I have to do it that way? I'm always questioning. Well, I should say I used to question. I've changed now. So now I just take things and I do it as I'm asked. But I always used to question everything. Why are you giving me that? Why do I have to do that? Why can't you get somebody else to do that? You know, but what I'm learning now, just by just accepting and stating to the individuals concerned that, I've got A, B, C, D, and E to do. I'll get to your thing tomorrow. Is that okay? Or I'll let you have it back by Thursday. Or do you have a deadline? And I'm not being rude in that way. I'm just stating facts. And I think in the workplace, it is about stating facts. It's about, if you feel put upon, like I said, you're the only one who's making tea for everybody. It is about saying, is there a reason for me why I'm the one that's being asked to make tea? If they say, well, it's an administrator's role, you can say, well, where is that? You could say, which might be a bit provocative, I don't see that in my job description. Or you could say, I don't mind making tea or coffee once in a while, but I think it's fair if everybody has a turn, because it's really taking up a lot of time that I could be dedicating to my work. So you could kind of say it that way, in a way that sounds fair to them, as opposed to resisting from making tea and saying, I'm not making tea, or I don't see why I should make the tea. You probably wouldn't say it like that anyway, but your face shoot up and you vex and, you put it down the plate and you walk off and you don't acknowledge anyone and all that kind of behavior. So it is about being pleasant and speaking your truth. Like I said, speaking your truth takes courage, but it gets you what you want. It commands respect. You learn to be more assertive. And like I said, even if they're overburdening you with work, you can say, yes, you're giving me this, but I do have this to do for so-and-so, and I have this to do for so-and-so. If you'd like to ask them if I should stop their work to do this, or how urgent is this piece of work? When do you want it? And sometimes just clarifying that. They might say, oh, there's no rush, I don't need it until next week. But because you haven't asked the question, you feel burdened. and you feel overwhelmed. So it's always good to clarify when you're given work, when it's needed, how important it is, and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, so it's similar like when you're in the workplace and somebody asks you to do you a favor, asks you to do them a favor. All depends what the favor is. All depends how long it takes. All depends who it's for. All depends whether or not you've got the time. You must learn to say no if it's not okay for you without feeling guilty. A lot of times like I said, we're human. We like to please people. We like to please people because it's our innate need to be accepted. Deep down, it's a form of, if I don't say yes, if I don't honor what they want, they might not like me. They might say something bad about me. So instead of being prepared for, if they want to say something bad, so be it. You kind of dumb down your actual feelings and you do what you don't really want to do, and then you feel resentful about it. So it really is important not to require validation from anyone, not to require approval for anyone. Your approval of yourself is enough, so that when you say no, you don't have to think, oh my God, what are they going to say? What are they going to think about me? You don't care what people think about you, as long as you have a justified reason for saying no. And I'm not telling you to snap and say, no, I'm not doing it, flat no. You give a reason. I'm really sorry, I can't do that now. I've just got too much on. And some people say I've got too much on. They might say, like what? And then you're going to get defensive, especially if you haven't really got too much on and you're just being obstructive. You need to be honest. If you don't want to do it because you don't like the person, or you don't think it's your role, or you don't think they should ask you, they should ask someone else, you can say, I'm not quite sure, is there anybody else who can do this for you? Or, this, it's really tough one when you say it's not in my job description, because a lot of job descriptions have that disclaimer that says, and anything else to facilitate the good working of the organisation, or words to that effect. So it's not good when you say it's not in my job description, because it shows how rigid you are. When you work for a company, it's very important to be generous with your time, with your spirit. People who stick to the rules, people who work to rule, it's very, very limiting. And yes, it might feel safe to work to rule, because it kind of makes you know where you are. It makes you know your boundaries. It helps you to feel that people won't take advantage of you. But it is more about control, isn't it? When you want to work to rule, it is about control. And there is nothing worse than working with somebody who doesn't want to go outside their job description, and who every minute, oh, this is not in my job description. If you want me to do that, you've got to update my job description. There is such a thing as flexibility. Like I said, providing they're not taking the P, providing they're not taking advantage, providing you don't feel as though you're an underdog. And if you do feel like an underdog, you say that, look, when you only ask me to make the coffee, I feel as though I feel as though I'm an underdog. I feel as though I'm a skivvy. And maybe they'll it make them think, oh, I didn't think about that. Maybe she has a point. Why aren't we asking anybody else in the organisation? Why can't we make tea ourselves? That's what my lot do. They don't ask me to make no tea. And sometimes if I'm in a good mood, I'll say to them, oh, anybody want a cup of tea? And they say, oh, what's got into you? Oh, did you get lucky last night? So, it is about cooperation, flexibility, and making sure that you're not playing the victim. It's very important that you know the reason why you resist um, doing certain things in the workplace. And like I said, especially for Black people, when they're given subservient roles or what they perceive as subservient roles, they can dig their heels in, especially if they feel as though it's repetitive or they're the only people being asked. I don't think, well, maybe in some organisations it does work that way. And if it works that way, it should be brought to attention because there is the equal opportunities. And that just doesn't apply to policy, that applies to everything in the workplace. You mustn't treat people differently just because of their colour. So if you're asking a Black person to make tea and coffee, you need to be asking a white person to do the same. Because, nobody's better in the eyes of the Father. So I hope that helps you to understand assertiveness in the workplace a bit better. It's about talking your truth. It's about talking it in a way that's respectful, that lets them know exactly how you feel, because they can't tell you don't feel a certain way. So always talk about your feelings. Don't be accusatory. Don't start saying, oh, you always make me make coffee, or you're always asking me to make coffee. Why are you always asking me to make coffee? No. You say to them, I feel that when you only ask me to make coffee, I feel like an underdog. I feel as though less than. It makes me feel as though you do not value me as a colleague because you're not asking anyone else. And I think making coffee, since we all drink coffee, it should be a shared responsibility. And I mean, you can actually don't even go with all that stuff about, oh, I feel like an underdog, because that kind of makes you feel like a victim. You can literally say that I think making the coffee should be a shared responsibility because we're all drinking coffee. I'm not quite sure why I'm the only one that's being asked to make the coffee. And if anybody could tell me, because I feel uncomfortable when I'm the only one making the coffee. Always focus on how you feel. That's very important. And then just state your truth. And that's all for now. Bye-bye.